The Mafia boss fired his secretary before noon. By nightfall, Vincent Moretti would have given anything to take those words back. Rain dragged silver lines down the 46th floor windows as Nora Whitaker stood alone at the end of a long conference table surrounded by men who had spent their lives hiding secrets. A black file sat beneath Vincent's hand. Inside it was enough evidence to make the woman he trusted most look like a traitor. 3 years of loyalty. One accusation, one decision made in seconds. But sometimes the most dangerous betrayal is not the one committed against you. It is the moment fear convinces you to destroy the person who is trying to save you. Stay with this story because what Vincent discovers after Nora walks out will change everything he believes about power, loyalty, and trust. If you enjoy stories like this, like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The rain on the 46th floor had not sounded dangerous that morning. At 6:50, it had been little more than a soft whisper against the glass, almost gentle, almost ordinary. Chicago was still waking beneath a ceiling of gray clouds, the river dark between the buildings, headlights threading through the streets below like slow-moving sparks. Nora Whitaker stepped out of the private elevator carrying 2 cups of coffee and a leather folder tucked beneath one arm. The offices of Moretti Holdings were nearly empty. That was normal. Most people arrived after 8. Vincent Moretti arrived before 7. Nora had learned that during her first month working for him. He liked the building before it filled with voices, before attorneys called, before managers needed decisions, before men with expensive watches and guarded eyes walked through his doors asking for favors they would later pretend had been business. At that hour, Vincent belonged only to silence, and for the last 3 years to Nora. She crossed the dark reception area without turning on the overhead lights. Vincent's office door was open. He stood beside the windows with one hand in his pocket staring down at the Chicago River. His charcoal suit jacket rested over the back of a chair. His white shirt sleeves were rolled neatly to his forearms. He had loosened his tie, though the workday had not officially started. That told Nora more than any conversation would have. He had not slept. She entered without knocking. Vincent did not turn. "You're early." Nora placed one coffee beside his right hand. "You're earlier." He looked at the cup. Black coffee, 2 shots of espresso, no sugar. He picked it up and took a slow drink. "How bad do I look?" Nora set her own coffee on the edge of his desk. "Do you want the answer from your secretary or from someone who has eyes?" Vincent glanced at her. There were men in Chicago who had crossed state lines rather than risk disappointing Vincent Moretti. Nora had once told him his tie made him look like an undertaker at a discount funeral. He had changed it. A faint amusement touched his mouth. "Secretary, you look rested. You're a terrible liar. Then stop asking questions when you already know the answer." That almost earned a smile. Almost. Vincent turned back toward the window. Most people saw his silence and assumed calculation. Nora had learned there were different kinds. There was the silence he used before making someone nervous, the silence he used when he was angry, the silence he used when deciding whether to forgive an error. This one was exhaustion. She opened her folder. "Your 8:30 meeting with Holloway is moved to 9. Vincent looked over his shoulder. "I didn't ask you to move it." "You were going to." "Why?" "Because your attorney called at 6:12 and said the revised contracts need your signature before 10. Vincent turned fully toward her. "How do you know Miles called?" "Because he called me after you ignored him. I was asleep. You were staring at the river." Vincent said nothing. Nora lifted her coffee. "I know because I called you at 6:20 and you rejected the call." "I was busy." "Of course," she continued through his schedule. "Anthony Rizzo needs 15 minutes before lunch. The Milwaukee property team sent the final numbers. I moved Lena to 6:30 because she said if you cancel on her again, she will personally come here and embarrass you in front of your employees." Vincent's expression hardened by a fraction. "What does that mean?" "I didn't ask." "You should have." "I value my peace." He looked almost offended. Then Nora added, "Your mother's birthday gift arrives Friday." His eyes narrowed. "I ordered something." "You did now." Vincent stared at her. Nora met his gaze without blinking. After a moment, he reached for the coffee again. "How much?" "Enough to make her think you remembered." "I did remember. Her birthday is next Wednesday." A pause. "I was going to remember." I'm sure. The faintest warmth entered his face. Nora closed the folder. I also rescheduled dinner with the alderman. You hate the restaurant he chose. Vincent looked at her. You canceled a political dinner because I dislike a restaurant. No, I moved a political dinner because every time you eat there you complain about the food for 2 days and make everyone around you miserable. Everyone, mostly me. This time the smile appeared. It was brief but real. Then footsteps sounded from the outer office. Vincent's expression changed before the visitor reached the door. The softness disappeared. The man who had smiled at Nora was gone. Vincent Moretti returned. Controlled, unreadable, untouchable. His younger sister Lena stepped into the office carrying a cream-colored umbrella and wearing the expression of a woman who had never been impressed by her brother's reputation. She kissed Vincent on the cheek. You look terrible. Vincent glanced toward Nora. Apparently I look rested. Nora lifted both hands. Professional obligation. Lena laughed. She was 32, sharp-eyed, elegant, and one of the few people who could walk into Vincent's office without being announced. She turned toward Nora. Did he eat? Not yet. Nora. Vincent's voice carried a warning. Neither woman paid attention. Lena looked at the coffee in his hand. That's not breakfast. I am standing right here. Nora picked up her folder. Then this seems like a family issue. She headed for the door. Lena watched Vincent watch her leave. Then she looked at her brother. For a man who doesn't trust anybody, you let that woman run half your life. Vincent's eyes remained on the doorway. She runs my calendar. Lena's mouth curved. Keep telling yourself that. Vincent looked at her. Lena merely smiled and stole the chair across from his desk. By 7:15, the building had begun to wake. Lights came on across the executive floor. Phones started ringing. Security officers changed shifts. Men in tailored suits stepped from elevators and spoke quietly because quiet was expected anywhere near Vincent Moretti. Nora sat at her desk outside his office with 3 screens glowing in front of her. On the first screen was Vincent's schedule. On the second were contracts awaiting approval. On the third was a financial summary she had opened the night before and never quite stopped thinking about. Ashcroft Advisory Group. The name had appeared in a routine payment report. There was nothing remarkable about the amount. That was what bothered her. Large theft attracted attention. Small irregularities disappeared inside noise. She clicked the transaction. $280,000. Consulting services. Approved. Nothing unusual. Then she opened the authorization record. Vincent Moretti, 1:17 a.m. Wednesday. Nora stopped moving. She knew exactly where Vincent had been at 1:17 that morning. 30,000 feet above Indiana. She had been there too. Their jet had been returning from Detroit after a meeting that had run 4 hours longer than expected. The cabin wireless connection had failed shortly after midnight. Vincent had complained because he could not access a private file. Nora remembered because she had told him the universe was forcing him to sleep. He had responded by opening a paper contract instead. At 1:17, he had been sitting across the aisle from her. There was no way he had authorized a payment from the Chicago system. Nora leaned closer to the screen. Maybe the timestamp was wrong. Maybe an approval had been queued earlier. Maybe someone had entered the authorization under his name as part of a normal process. There were a dozen harmless explanations. She checked the associated access code. It belonged to Vincent. Her stomach tightened. Nora searched for other Ashcroft transactions. A second payment appeared. Same amount. Different date. Vincent had supposedly approved it while he was in St. Louis. A third. Approved during his New York trip. A fourth. Las Vegas. Nora sat back slowly. The office around her continued normally. A receptionist laughed near the elevators. Someone rolled a cart past the glass doors. A phone rang twice before being answered. Ordinary sounds. Nora looked again at the screen. Every suspicious approval happened while Vincent was outside Chicago. She pulled up the travel calendar. Detroit, St. Louis, New York, Las Vegas. The pattern matched perfectly. Her pulse slowed instead of accelerating. That always happened when she became afraid. The world seemed to sharpen. She opened the attachments. At first they appeared harmless. Vendor records, scheduling documents, property agreements. Then Nora noticed a file attached to the Detroit transaction. A meeting itinerary. Not a public itinerary. It listed a private dinner location where Vincent had met 2 representatives from a shipping company. Only 6 people had known that address. She opened the St. Louis transaction. Another attachment, hotel reservation details, floor number, arrival window, names of 2 Moretti Holdings subsidiaries that were not publicly connected to Vincent. Nora's hand left the mouse. This was not about money. The payments were camouflage. Someone was hiding the movement of information inside legitimate financial activity. She clicked another file. Shipping schedules. Another. Names of private investors. Another. A list of acquisition targets Vincent had not yet announced. Nora stared at the screen. 1 leaked payment could cost money. 1 leaked meeting location could cost considerably more. Vincent had enemies. Some were businessmen who preferred courtrooms. Some preferred pressure. Some preferred accidents. He had survived long enough because almost nobody knew where he would be until he was already there. Someone had been selling that advantage. Nora reached for her phone. Her first instinct was Vincent. It had always been Vincent. She stopped before touching the screen. If someone close enough to access these records was responsible, calling him immediately could be exactly what the traitor expected. The person might be listening to internal communications, might have access to his office, might be sitting 10 yards away. Nora opened the access history. 3 names appeared repeatedly beside the Ashcroft records: Caleb Voss, Anthony Rizzo, Miles Carver. Nora read them twice. Caleb was Vincent's senior advisor. 9 years inside the organization. He had known Vincent before Moretti Holdings occupied half a downtown tower. He attended Sunday dinners with the family. He knew Lena. He knew Vincent's mother. He knew which doctors Vincent trusted and which restaurants he used for private conversations. Anthony Rizzo controlled finance. He had been with the company 6 years. Intelligent, disciplined, ambitious. 3 months earlier, Nora had heard him arguing with someone about a private investment loss. Miles Carver was Vincent's attorney. Smooth, cautious, difficult to read. He had access to contracts, shell corporations, property transfers, and sensitive negotiations. Any one of them could have reached the information. Any one of them could explain their name appearing in the logs. Nora printed the access report. The printer beside her desk gave a soft, mechanical hum. She reached for the page. A man's voice came from behind her. Still saving Vincent from himself? Nora did not jump. She placed a legal pad over the report before turning. Caleb Voss stood beside her desk. He wore a navy suit and a dark wool coat perfectly tailored as always. His hair was touched with gray at the temples. He smiled with the practiced warmth of a man who could make a threat sound like a compliment. "Someone has to," Nora said. Caleb glanced toward Vincent's office. "Does he know how lucky he is?" "He assumes competence is standard. Of course he does." Caleb looked at Nora's desk. His eyes paused on the legal pad, only for a second. Then he smiled again. "You work too hard. Occupational hazard. Careful. One day he'll start believing you enjoy it." "He already does." Caleb laughed softly. Then he moved toward the elevators. Nora watched him until the doors closed. Only then did she remove the legal pad. The printed report sat beneath it. Caleb Voss, Anthony Rizzo, Miles Carver, 3 names. 3 men Vincent trusted. Nora folded the paper and slipped it into her folder. For the next 40 minutes she worked normally. She answered calls, confirmed appointments, sent documents, reminded Vincent that Lena was still waiting in his office. She smiled when necessary. She did not look again at Ashcroft. At 8:23, Vincent stepped out of his office. His jacket was back on, his tie straight. Whatever exhaustion Nora had seen earlier was hidden now. He stopped beside her desk. "You're quiet." Nora continued typing. "Some people appreciate that quality." "I don't." She looked up. Vincent studied her face. It was one of the things she disliked most about working for a man who had spent his life reading danger in other people. He noticed changes, a shorter answer, a slower blink, a hand that remained too still. Nora knew he was watching her. "Something wrong?" For half a second she nearly told him. Then Anthony Rizzo emerged from the elevator. Miles Carver was behind him. Caleb's office door stood open farther down the corridor. All 3 suspects were now on the same floor. Nora looked back at Vincent. Nothing I can't handle. His gaze narrowed slightly. Nora, I need another hour. For what? She held his eyes. Trust me. Something changed in his expression. Not suspicion. Concern. Vincent lowered his voice. If this is about one of my people, you tell me. Nora felt a chill move along her arms. He was too close to the truth. She gave him the only answer she could safely offer. When I know enough to give you something useful, I will. Vincent did not like that. Control was how he survived uncertainty. Nora had just asked him to accept uncertainty. Still, after a moment, he nodded. 1 hour. She watched him walk toward the conference room with Anthony and Miles. Caleb joined them near the doors. All 3 men disappeared inside with Vincent. Nora looked at the clock. 8:27. She stood. The secure archive occupied a restricted room 2 floors below. Nora had legitimate administrative access to portions of it, but not to the sealed financial records tied to private Moretti entities. Accessing those records without authorization could end her career. She knew that before she entered the elevator. She knew it when she stepped onto the 44th floor. She knew it when her badge unlocked the first door, and she knew it when the second screen asked for executive verification. Nora entered a code Vincent had given her 18 months earlier for emergency access. The door clicked open. Cold air brushed her face. Rows of locked cabinets stood beneath white ceiling lights. No windows, no noise. Nora moved quickly. Ashcroft Advisory Group. She found the physical files, payment records, authorization copies, communication logs, shipping attachments. She removed only what she needed. Then she connected a small encrypted drive to the secure terminal. The transfer bar appeared. 12%. 26. 49. Nora kept looking toward the door. 73, 88. A red notification flashed briefly in the corner of the screen. Access alert transmitted. Nora's heartbeat changed. She clicked the message. It disappeared before she could open it. The transfer reached 100%. She disconnected the drive, slipped it inside the hidden inner pocket of her purse. Then she took 3 original documents from the file, not enough to empty the folder, enough to prove the records had existed if someone tried to erase them electronically. Nora returned upstairs at 9:06. No one was waiting at her desk. She sat down, opened Vincent's calendar, tried to breathe normally. At 9:11, her main monitor went black. Nora stared at it. The second followed, then the third. She reached for her badge. A small red light appeared when she tested it against the desk reader. Access denied. The executive floor seemed suddenly too quiet. 2 security officers stepped out of the elevator. Grant Holloway was not with them. That bothered her. Then Caleb Voss appeared from the hallway carrying a thin black folder. Nora looked at the folder. Her name was printed across the tab. Caleb stopped several feet from her desk. His expression was calm, almost sympathetic. Too sympathetic. Nora. She rose slowly. Caleb held her gaze. Vincent wants to see you. Nora picked up her purse. The encrypted drive pressed against the inside lining. She did not look toward it. She did not look toward Caleb either. She looked past him at Vincent's closed conference room door. An hour earlier, Vincent had given her 60 minutes to bring him the truth. Someone else had used less than 40 to build a lie. The security officers stepped aside. Nora walked toward the conference room. Caleb followed behind her. When she reached the door, she heard Vincent's voice on the other side. Cold, controlled, waiting. Nora placed her hand on the handle and pushed it open. The conference room was colder than the archive. Not because of the temperature, because Vincent Moretti was sitting at the head of the table with 6 men around him, and every one of them had already seen the folder with Nora Whitaker's name on it. She understood that before anyone spoke. The rain had thickened outside the windows, turning the Chicago skyline into gray shapes behind glass. Far below, the river moved through downtown beneath a layer of mist. Nora closed the door behind her. Vincent did not ask her to sit. Caleb Voss moved to the right side of the table and took his place without looking at her. Anthony Rizzo sat 2 chairs away. Miles Carver had a legal pad open in front of him. Grant Holloway stood near the wall. 3 other senior men remained silent. Vincent rested one hand over the black folder. His face revealed nothing. That frightened Nora more than anger would have. "Your access was disabled at 9:11, Vincent said. Nora glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:16, only 5 minutes. Someone had prepared everything. Vincent opened the folder. He removed a page and slid it toward her. Nora looked down. Security records, her employee credentials, the secure archive. 8:31 a.m. The time was accurate. Vincent watched her. "Is that your identification number?" "Yes." Another page. A photograph from the hallway camera. Nora entering the restricted records floor. "Is that you?" "Yes." Vincent's jaw moved slightly. He placed a third document on the table. "Did you access Ashcroft Advisory Group records without authorization?" Nora did not look at Caleb. That would have been too obvious. She looked at Vincent. "Yes." The room became even quieter. Vincent stared at her for several seconds. Nora could feel the disappointment behind his expression. That was the part that hurt. Not suspicion. Disappointment. As though he had already decided she had become someone else. "Did you remove original documents from the archive?" Nora heard Miles shift in his chair. Anthony looked down. Caleb remained perfectly still. Nora answered. "Yes." Vincent closed his eyes for less than a second. When he opened them again, his voice was lower. "Why?" There it was. The only question that mattered. Nora looked around the table. Caleb, Anthony, Miles. 3 names from the access logs. 3 men close enough to Vincent to ruin him. If she spoke openly and chose the wrong one, the real traitor would know exactly what she had discovered. "Not here." Vincent's expression hardened. "What does that mean?" "It means I need everyone out of this room." Anthony looked at her. Miles stopped writing. Caleb's face did not change. Vincent leaned back slightly. "You're in no position to give instructions." "I'm not giving you one." "It sounds like one." Nora stepped closer to the table. "Give me 5 minutes alone with you." Nobody moved. Vincent looked at the men around him, then back at Nora. "What are you afraid they'll hear?" "Something I am not ready for the wrong person to hear." That created a reaction. Small. A glance between 2 men. A slight tightening around Anthony's mouth. Grant's eyes sharpened. Caleb finally spoke. "If Miss Whitaker has evidence, Vincent, perhaps she should present it." Nora turned her head toward him. Only slightly. Caleb gave her the same concerned expression he had worn at her desk. Professional, reasonable, helpful. Vincent looked at Nora again. "Do you have evidence?" She thought of the encrypted drive inside her purse. "Yes." "Then show me." "I will." "Now. Alone." Vincent's fingers tightened against the folder. "Nora." She had heard him say her name hundreds of times, sometimes impatiently, sometimes quietly, once or twice almost gently. This time it sounded like a warning. She lowered her voice. "At 8:27 this morning, you gave me 1 hour." Vincent said nothing. "You told me to bring you something useful when I knew enough." "I remember." "I need you to trust that I found something." "Then tell me." "I can't do it with everyone here." Caleb leaned toward the table. "This is becoming convenient." Nora ignored him. Vincent did not. His eyes shifted briefly toward Caleb, then back to her. "Your credentials entered a restricted archive. Original documents disappeared. Security detected an external transfer from your employee account 12 minutes later." Nora's stomach tightened. That last part was new. "What external transfer?" Vincent studied her. "A confidential file was sent from your credentials to an unauthorized server." "I didn't send anything." "Security says you did." "Security is wrong." Grant stepped away from the wall. "The transfer originated from your account, Nora." She looked at him. "At what time?" Grant glanced at the document. 8:43. Nora calculated. She had been inside the archive at 8:43, but she had copied only to the encrypted drive. No external network, no server. Someone had created a second trail while she was inside. Perfect. Too perfect. Vincent pushed the folder toward her. "Tell me what I am supposed to believe." Nora looked down at the pages. Access logs, camera images, transfer records, her name everywhere. 3 years of loyalty reduced to paper. She looked back at him. "Believe me." The words were quiet. No one in the room reacted. Vincent did. His eyes changed. The anger weakened for 1 second. Something more personal appeared beneath it. Fear. Not fear of what she had done. Fear that she had done it at all. Nora understood then. This was not only business to him. That should have comforted her. Instead, it made what happened next worse. Vincent looked down at the folder. What did you take? I can't tell you here. Who received the transfer? I didn't send one. What were you planning to do with the documents? Protect you. Caleb let out a breath that almost sounded like disbelief. Vincent's head turned toward him. Caleb lifted one hand. I said nothing. Nora looked at Vincent. Ask everyone to leave. Vincent remained silent. 5 seconds passed. 10. Nora could hear rain striking the glass behind him. She could hear the soft hum of the air system. She could hear her own pulse. Vincent finally spoke. No. One word. Nora's face did not change. Inside, something dropped. She had known it was possible. She had not believed he would actually choose it. Vincent, if you're telling the truth, you can tell it here. No. His eyes hardened. Then you're asking me to ignore evidence because you want special treatment. I'm asking you to remember 3 years. Vincent went very still. Nora continued. I'm asking you to remember every room I kept people out of because you told me nobody entered without your permission. Every call I took at 2 in the morning. Every schedule I changed because something felt wrong. Every time I brought you information you did not want to hear. Her voice remained controlled. I have never asked you to trust me without a reason. Vincent looked at her as if he wanted to believe that. Caleb spoke again. Vincent, we have an obligation to the organization. Nora felt anger rise. For the first time she turned fully toward him. Do you? Caleb's expression sharpened. The question hung in the room. Vincent noticed. Nora saw it. For 1 second she thought he might understand. Then Caleb leaned back and said nothing. Vincent looked down at the folder. When he spoke again, his voice was almost too calm. You're done here. Nora stared at him. No one moved. Vincent continued. Effective immediately. The words landed without force. That made them heavier. Nora felt her throat tighten. She refused to let anyone see it. She reached for the badge clipped inside her jacket. The plastic card felt strangely light after 3 years. She placed it on the table in front of Vincent. His eyes dropped to it. A tiny fracture appeared in his expression. Nora saw regret trying to arrive before pride pushed it away. She picked up her purse. Vincent said her name. Nora. She stopped near the door. For 1 ridiculous second she hoped. She looked back. Vincent had stood. Security will take you downstairs. Something inside her almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because she had spent 3 years walking beside the most feared man in half the city, and now he believed she needed an escort out of his building. Nora opened the door. Then she turned one last time. When you find out why I took those files, Vincent, don't come looking for me. He did not answer. Nora left before he could. Grant followed her to the elevator. Neither spoke. Inside the elevator, Nora watched the numbers descend. 46, 42, 37. Grant stood beside her with his hands clasped in front of him. At 29, he said quietly, If there is something I should know, tell me. Nora kept her eyes on the numbers. If I knew who I could trust, I would. Grant's expression changed, but the elevator doors opened before he answered. The lobby seemed impossibly bright. People moved through the marble space carrying briefcases and umbrellas. Nobody looked at Nora. Nobody knew that 10 minutes earlier she had still belonged to this building. Grant stopped near the security desk. Your company phone access will terminate immediately. I assumed. Your car remains in the garage. I'll get it later. Grant looked at her. Where are you going? Nora met his eyes. I haven't decided. That was not entirely true. She wanted to distance, crowds, somewhere public, somewhere she could think. Grant seemed about to say something else. Instead, he opened the revolving door. Cold rain met Nora outside. She stepped onto the sidewalk. The door closed behind her. For the first time in 3 years, nobody was waiting for her decision. No calendar, no calls, no Vincent. The thought should have felt like freedom. It did not. Nora pulled her coat tighter and began walking east. The black SUV moved away from the curb behind her. She noticed it after half a block. At first, she told herself it meant nothing. Chicago was filled with black SUVs. At the next intersection, she crossed against the light. The SUV crossed after her. She turned south. It followed. Nora did not run. She kept the same pace. Her hand moved inside her purse and touched the encrypted drive. That was when fear became certainty. They were not following Vincent Moretti's former secretary. They were following what she had taken. She entered a crowded coffee shop and ordered the first thing on the menu. Through the front window, she watched the SUV continue past. Nora exhaled. Then it stopped at the next block. Her phone was still in her hand. Vincent's number sat near the top of her recent calls. She touched it. The call connected. 1 ring. 2. Nora ended it before he answered. What could she say? Someone is following me? The evidence is false, trust me now. She had asked for that when it mattered. He had chosen a folder. Nora slipped through the side exit and joined the flow of pedestrians moving toward downtown. Back on the 46th floor, Vincent Moretti was discovering how loud an empty desk could be. The first problem arrived 11 minutes after Nora left. Miles Carver called from downstairs. Where are the revised purchase agreements? Vincent looked toward Nora's desk. I don't know. A pause. Miles clearly had not expected that answer. Nora usually sends them before 9. Find someone else. Vincent hung up. 3 minutes later, his assistant from another division entered carrying coffee. Vincent took 1 drink. Sugar. He set it down. Who made this? The woman hesitated. I did. Vincent looked at the cup as though it had personally insulted him. No sugar. I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. He waved her away. At 10:02, Anthony Rizzo called about a meeting that had apparently been moved. Vincent had no memory of approving the change. At 10:07, Lena texted asking whether he still planned to meet her that evening. At 10:12, Grant requested the updated travel packet for Milwaukee. Vincent looked again at Nora's empty desk. Her computer screens were dark. Her chair sat pushed back at an angle. A coffee mug remained beside the keyboard. Cream residue at the bottom. Vincent stared at it longer than he should have. Then his eyes moved to a paper calendar beneath the keyboard. Nora trusted electronic systems for speed. She trusted paper for memory. Vincent knew that because he had once asked why she kept both. Her answer had been simple. Computers remember what you type. Paper remembers what worried you. He pulled the calendar toward him. Blue ink covered most of the week. Names, times, phone numbers, black notes beside contracts. Red circles around anything she considered urgent. Wednesday's page had 1 entry circled 3 times. Ashcroft. Below it, 1:17 a.m. check authorization. Vincent stopped breathing for a second. He opened the black folder again. The accusation report listed unauthorized activity under Nora's credentials. He scanned the timestamps. Wednesday. Worst 17 a.m. Vincent stared at the number. A memory surfaced. Dark plane cabin, turbulence over Indiana. Nora asleep across the aisle with her laptop closed on the table. Vincent had looked at the time because the pilot announced another 30 minutes before landing. 1:16. He remembered taking off his jacket and placing it over Nora because she had fallen asleep without one. At 1:17, Nora had been 20 feet from him, in the air. Her laptop had been closed. The onboard network had been unavailable. Vincent stood so quickly his chair struck the credenza behind him. Grant. No answer. He opened the office door. Grant. The security chief appeared from the hallway. Vincent pushed the report across Nora's desk. Verify that timestamp. Grant looked at it. We already did. Do it again. Grant studied Vincent's face. Why? Because she was with me. Grant's eyes moved to the page. When? At 1:17 Wednesday morning. Where? On the plane. Grant frowned. The system shows her credentials accessing from Chicago. She was not in Chicago. Grant looked at the calendar, then back at Vincent. She could have scheduled a remote session. Vincent wanted that explanation. He hated himself for wanting it. Because if Grant was right, then maybe Vincent had not just destroyed 3 years of trust over a lie. Check it. Grant nodded. Vincent continued. Server logs, building cameras, remote access records, everything. Grant left. Vincent remained beside Nora's desk. Her handwriting seemed suddenly everywhere. A note reminding him to call Lena, a restaurant reservation, a shipping number, a yellow square stuck to the monitor. Don't sign Rizzo's revision until Miles reviews Section 9. Vincent stared at it. Even on the morning he fired her, she had still been protecting him from mistakes he had not noticed yet. His phone rang. Caleb Voss. Vincent answered immediately. "Where are you?" A brief pause. "On my way to meet Sloane's people." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "What meeting?" "The property issue on Ashland. We discussed it yesterday." Vincent did not remember discussing it. "Come back." Another pause. "Is something wrong? Come back." Vincent ended the call. Grant returned 14 minutes later carrying a tablet. His face had changed. Vincent saw it before he spoke. "The remote session theory doesn't work." Vincent said nothing. Grant placed the tablet down. Nora's account shows physical authentication in Chicago at 1:17, but her badge was also recorded entering the private terminal at Midway earlier that night. Vincent's jaw tightened. Grant continued. "Flight records confirm your plane was already airborne." Vincent looked toward the windows. Chicago blurred behind rain. "The credentials were copied." "It looks that way." "And the transfer this morning?" "We are checking." Vincent looked back at him. "Who prepared the security report?" Grant hesitated. That hesitation was enough. "Who?" "Caleb." Vincent went still. Grant continued carefully. "He submitted the first alert at 8:50. Vincent looked at the clock. Nora had entered the archive at 8:31. How did he know what she took? Grant did not answer. Vincent picked up his phone and called Caleb, straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. He looked at Grant. "Find him." Grant touched his earpiece. A minute later, his expression darkened. "His office is empty." "Garage." "His car left 27 minutes ago." Vincent stared at Nora's desk. The black folder suddenly looked different. Not evidence. Construction. A story assembled quickly enough to make him stop asking questions. He had done exactly that. His stomach turned. "Where is Nora?" Grant frowned. "She left." "I know she left. Where is she now?" "We aren't tracking her personal phone. Her company security app. Disabled when her access was terminated." Vincent looked up sharply. "Who ordered that?" Grant's silence answered him. Vincent's voice dropped. "Tell me." "Caleb." The room seemed to narrow. Vincent remembered Nora standing at the conference table. "Not here. 5 minutes alone. Trust me." He had refused every door she tried to leave open. "Did security search her purse?" "No." Vincent stared at Grant. "Why not?" "Because the report said the transfer had already occurred. Caleb said the physical documents were likely irrelevant once access was terminated." Vincent understood immediately. Caleb had wanted Nora outside the building, outside Vincent's protection, still carrying whatever she had found. Vincent reached for his phone. He called her. No answer. Again, no answer. "Get every available team downtown." Grant moved toward the door. Vincent stopped him. Quietly, Grant looked back. "Vincent, do not frighten her." The word sounded wrong in his own mouth. Hours earlier, he had not cared whether security escorted her through his lobby. Now the idea of armed men surrounding her without warning made something cold move through his chest. Grant nodded and left. At Union Station, Nora stood beneath the vast ceiling with hundreds of people moving around her. Voices echoed across stone. Announcements rolled overhead. Wheels clicked against polished floors. She chose a place near the center of the main hall where cameras covered every direction. The SUV had disappeared 3 blocks earlier. She did not believe that meant she was safe. Nora sat on a bench and opened the encrypted drive through an application on her personal laptop. Ashcroft, payment records, travel dates, attachments. She arranged the information side by side. Detroit. 1 leaked meeting location. 2 days later, a competitor unexpectedly withdrew from a shipping agreement with Vincent. St. Louis. A hotel schedule. The next morning, reporters appeared outside a private negotiation no one had announced. New York. Acquisition documents. A rival company raised its offer less than 6 hours before Vincent finalized his bid. Las Vegas. Private investor names. 2 investors suddenly walked away. Nora stopped. These were not random leaks. Someone was selling Vincent's plans before he could execute them. She searched company registrations tied to Ashcroft. Most led nowhere. One address appeared twice. A mail service in Nevada. Another entity used the same registered agent. Sloan Strategic Development. Derek Sloan. Nora leaned back. Derek had been circling Moretti properties for years, polite in public, predatory in private. He had never been able to get close enough to Vincent's inner circle. He did not need to. Someone had brought the inner circle to him. Nora opened the access history again. Caleb Voss appeared beside 3 compromised files. Anthony Rizzo appeared beside 2. Miles Carver appeared beside 4. Still not enough. Then she noticed something different. Approval requests. Every suspicious Ashcroft transaction had been reviewed by the same executive liaison account before final authorization. The account belonged to Caleb's office. Nora's phone vibrated. Vincent. She watched the name appear. She let the call end. A message came seconds later. The evidence against you is false. Nora stared at it. Another message. I was wrong. Tell me where you are. Her eyes burned. She blinked until the words became clear again. 4 hours ago, she would have given anything to read them. Now she only felt tired. Another vibration. Nora almost looked down. Instead, she saw movement reflected in the dark glass of a closed ticket counter. A navy suit. Gray at the temples. Calm expression. Caleb Voss stood 40 feet behind her. He was looking directly at the bag beside her feet. Nora did not turn around. Her phone rang again. Vincent. This time she answered. Nora. His voice came immediately. No command, no anger, only tension. She kept her eyes on Caleb's reflection. Union Station. A pause. Then Vincent asked the question that changed his voice completely. Are you alone? Caleb started walking toward her. Nora rose slowly and closed her laptop. Not anymore. Not anymore. The words barely left Nora's mouth before Vincent's silence changed. She had known him long enough to hear it. Not confusion, calculation. Every part of him had gone still. Who? Nora kept her eyes on the dark reflection in the ticket window. Caleb moved through the crowd without hurry. That was what made him frightening. He did not look like a man chasing someone. He looked like a businessman arriving early for a meeting. Navy suit beneath a dark wool coat, hands empty, expression calm. People passed between them carrying luggage, coffee, newspapers, children umbrellas still wet from the rain outside. Nobody noticed him. Nobody noticed Nora. That was the advantage of a crowded place. It was also the danger. Caleb, she said. Vincent inhaled once, only once. Then his voice became quiet. Listen to me carefully. Nora closed her laptop and slipped it into her bag. Caleb was 30 feet away. Already doing that. Stay where people can see you. That was the idea. I have Grant moving toward you. How far? There was a pause. Vincent spoke to someone away from the phone. Nora could not hear the words. Then he came back. Less than 6 minutes. Nora watched Caleb move closer. That feels optimistic. Nora, his voice sharpened, not at her, at the situation. She almost smiled despite herself. There was the Vincent she knew, the man who believed urgency could be controlled if everyone simply obeyed fast enough. Caleb stopped 15 feet away. A family crossed between them. A little boy dragged a red suitcase behind him and complained that he was hungry. His mother told him they would eat on the train. The ordinariness of it made Nora's skin feel cold. Caleb waited for them to pass. Then he looked directly at her. You always were too curious. Nora kept the phone beside her ear. And you always appeared exactly when someone didn't want you there. Something changed in Caleb's eyes. Not surprise, recognition. He had spent years treating Nora as competent but harmless, a useful woman at a desk, a person who knew schedules, preferences, phone numbers, and the exact minute Vincent needed coffee. He had not understood until too late that remembering small things was exactly how Nora found large ones. Caleb glanced toward the bag at her side. Where is the drive? Vincent heard him. Nora knew because she heard a chair move sharply somewhere on the other end of the call. She ignored the question. Why Ashcroft? Caleb's eyes narrowed. It was the first genuine reaction she had seen from him. Nora felt a thin thread of satisfaction. You don't need to understand that. Then why are you here? Because you have something that belongs to Vincent. Nora almost laughed. Interesting way to describe stolen records. I wasn't talking about the records. His gaze moved to her. For a moment she did not understand. Then she did. Information, access, knowledge, 3 years of confidential schedules and private patterns lived inside Nora's memory. Caleb knew that. He had always known that. Nora tightened her grip on the phone. Vincent spoke quietly. Keep him talking. Caleb watched her face. He's listening, isn't he? Nora said nothing. Caleb gave a faint smile. Of course he is. You sound disappointed. Not at all. His voice remained conversational. I've spent 9 years listening to Vincent listen to everyone except the people closest to him. Nora's eyes hardened. You don't get to talk about loyalty. I know more about loyalty than you think. Men who sell private information usually do. The smile vanished. A train announcement echoed overhead. Caleb glanced around the station. Nora followed his eyes. He was measuring exits, cameras, crowds, time. That meant he knew Vincent had people coming. Good. Let him worry. How much did Sloan pay you? Nora asked. Caleb looked back at her. This time he could not fully hide the surprise. Nora continued before he could recover. That was the part you buried badly. I buried it well enough. Not once the travel schedule was beside it. His face became still. Nora could almost feel Vincent listening through the phone. Every word mattered now. She stepped half a pace to the side, keeping a stone bench between herself and Caleb. Detroit, St. Louis, New York, Las Vegas. Every payment happened while Vincent was gone. Every information leak appeared shortly before Sloan gained an advantage. Caleb's eyes stayed on hers. You're very good at this. That sounds like regret. More like respect. I don't want yours. No. His voice softened. You always wanted his. Nora's stomach tightened. Caleb saw it. He smiled again. This one was different. Cruel. Careful. He had found the place he wanted to press. Nora did not look away. You're going to need something better than that. Am I... Caleb took one slow step closer. I watched you for 3 years. That sounds unhealthy. I watched everyone. His gaze sharpened. That's how you survive around men like Vincent. Nora said nothing. Caleb continued. You learned his coffee before you learned half the senior staff's names. You knew when he had a migraine before he admitted it. You could walk into his office while men twice your salary waited outside. The people passed between them again. Caleb waited. Then he said, You think none of us noticed? Nora kept her voice level. Noticed what? That he trusted you differently. On the phone, Vincent remained silent. Caleb gave a small laugh. There it is. What? The part neither of you likes saying out loud. Nora's pulse quickened. She hated that Caleb could still make a wrong thing sound reasonable. She hated even more that he knew where the truth was buried. Caleb looked beyond her toward the station entrance. No grant yet? Nora did not react. Caleb turned his attention back to her. You asked why Ashcroft? Yes. It was useful. That's not an answer. It is the answer. He slipped one hand into his coat pocket. Nora's body tightened instantly. Caleb noticed. He removed his phone. Nothing else. He held it loosely at his side. Vincent sees large threats clearly. Men with armies, men with money. Men who announce that they want his territory, his contracts, his name. Caleb's voice lowered. He is much worse with small ones. Nora understood. Routine transactions. Exactly. Amounts nobody would question. Not immediately. Hidden inside legitimate business? Caleb nodded once. For a second, they almost sounded like two professionals reviewing a strategy. That was what made the conversation feel surreal. Nora asked, Why sell locations? Because money is temporary. What does that mean? Money changes hands, information changes decisions. Caleb looked toward the high ceiling. Sloan didn't need Vincent dead. Dead men create chaos. Sloan needed Vincent predictable. Nora felt cold. Caleb continued. A meeting moved because someone knew where it was. An investor became nervous because the right rumor reached him first. A property bid failed because Sloane knew the number before Vincent entered the room. He shrugged. Small losses. Until they aren't. Now you're understanding. Nora's anger rose. How many people did you put at risk? Caleb's expression remained calm. I controlled what Sloane received. You think that makes you better? It makes me precise. You sold private locations. I sold selected information. To a man who hates Vincent? To a man who understands business? Nora stared at him. No, you sold access and told yourself you could control what someone else did with it. Caleb's jaw tightened. The first sign she had wounded his pride. Good. Vincent spoke quietly into her ear. Ask him why. Nora did not answer Vincent. She looked at Caleb. 9 years. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. You stood beside him for 9 years. Sunday dinners, family meetings, every ugly decision nobody else wanted near their name. His expression changed by a fraction. Nora saw it. Why? Caleb looked away. Not for long. Long enough. Nora stepped carefully into the silence. Sloane's money can't be enough. Caleb gave a humorless smile. Money is always enough for someone, but not for you. No, no. She watched him. You already had money. Caleb's face hardened. You had access, status. Vincent trusted you. Lena treated you like family. At Lena's name, something passed through his eyes. Nora caught it. Whatever Sloane paid you wasn't the beginning. Caleb stared at her. Nora knew then she had found the door. She pushed. It started before Ashcroft. His smile disappeared completely. Vincent remained silent. Nora continued. It started when something changed. Caleb said nothing. Was it Anthony? Nothing. Miles? Nothing. Then Nora understood. Not a person. A shift. Her. She almost wished she had not. You lost access when I started handling more of Vincent's private schedule. Caleb's mouth tightened. There. Nora felt her stomach drop. That's it. Caleb looked at her with something close to contempt. You think highly of yourself. No, you do. His expression darkened. Nora continued. You thought I was replacing you. Caleb laughed once. It contained no amusement. You... He stepped closer to the bench. A secretary. Nora did not flinch. Apparently. Caleb's face changed. For the first time, the polished mask cracked. Do you know what it was like before you arrived? His voice was still quiet, but the control had become thinner. I was the one he called before every meeting. I was the one who knew which contracts mattered, which men were lying, which deals needed another set of eyes. Nora listened. Then you appeared. He almost spat the words. With your perfect calendars and quiet little observations. Nora said nothing. Caleb looked past her for a moment. He started asking what you thought. There it was. Not money, not Sloane. Humiliation. A man who believed proximity to power belonged to him. Caleb continued. At first it was scheduling. Then contracts, then private meetings, then family. Nora remembered Lena visiting her desk. Birthday gifts, hospital appointments, family dinners. Things Vincent did not trust to most men around him. Caleb's voice sharpened. You never even asked for it. No. That made it worse. Nora stared at him. Caleb laughed softly again. Everyone else had spent years earning a place near him. You simply became necessary. A strange sadness moved through Nora. Not for Caleb, for how small his betrayal suddenly looked. 9 years reduced to resentment because another person became trusted. You could have left, she said. Caleb looked at her. You could have built something of your own. You think that's what this is about? I think you wanted Vincent to feel your absence. Caleb went quiet. Nora knew she was close. You wanted him to discover he needed you. His face became unreadable. But he didn't. That landed. Caleb's eyes hardened instantly. Nora continued, before fear could stop her. He adjusted. Careful. And every time he trusted me with something he used to bring to you, you treated it like I was taking something. Nora. But trust isn't property. His voice dropped. Enough. She almost smiled. Now he was the one losing control. You didn't betray Vincent because Sloane offered enough money. Caleb stared at her. You betrayed him because you could not stand the idea that he might trust someone without needing your permission. Caleb took another step. Nora remained behind the bench. Vincent's voice came through the phone. Nora moved toward the main entrance. She glanced at the large doors. Too far. Caleb saw the movement of her eyes. His expression changed. How close are they? Nora said nothing. He checked the station clock, then looked back at her. Grant. Silence. 4 minutes. Nora kept her face still. 3. You sound nervous. I'm realistic. Interesting distinction. Caleb looked at the bag again. Give me the drive. No. You have already sent him enough. I haven't sent him anything. Then you're making this harder than necessary. For you. For everyone. Nora's voice chilled. Don't include me in that word. Caleb sighed. You still don't understand the position you're in. I understand it perfectly. Do you? He gestured faintly around them. Vincent fired you. The sentence struck exactly where Caleb intended. Nora kept her expression still. He saw a folder and decided 3 years meant less than 30 pages of paper. Her throat tightened. Caleb noticed. Of course he did. You asked him to trust you. Nora's fingers tightened around the phone. He didn't. Vincent said her name quietly. Nora. She did not respond. Caleb's eyes flicked toward the phone. Now he knew. He stepped closer. That's what you're protecting. Nora looked directly at him. I'm protecting evidence. Still lying to yourself? Caleb's voice softened. You were protecting him before you knew whether he deserved it. Nora's pulse hurt against her throat. You went into that archive because you saw something threatening Vincent, and your first instinct was to step between him and it. Caleb tilted his head. And what did he do when the threat pointed at you? Nora wanted to hate him for saying it. The problem was that the words were true. Vincent had done exactly what Caleb predicted. That did not make Caleb right. It made Vincent wrong. There was a difference. Nora forced herself to breathe. He made a mistake. Caleb stared at her, then laughed softly. On the phone, Vincent spoke before Caleb could answer. A serious one. Nora's eyes closed for half a second. Caleb heard him. His face tightened. Nora lifted the phone slightly. He's listening. Caleb stared at the device. Then his expression changed again. Calm returned. Not because he felt safe, because he had decided something. Good. Nora felt a chill. Caleb looked directly at the phone in her hand as though Vincent stood beside her. You want the truth, Vincent? No answer came through the speaker. Caleb continued anyway. Sloane was never the important part. Nora's eyes narrowed. Then what was... Caleb looked at her. Proof. Of what? That Vincent's entire system was built around the wrong assumption. Nora waited. Caleb's voice became almost thoughtful. He believes distrust makes him strong. Vincent said nothing. He checks accounts, watches rivals, tests loyalty, keeps everyone just far enough away that losing them should never matter. Caleb looked at Nora. Then you came along. Nora felt her heartbeat slow. Caleb continued. He stopped checking you. Vincent's voice came through the phone. That is not why. Caleb smiled. Isn't it? No. Then tell her why. Silence. Caleb's smile widened. Nora hated him for enjoying it. He trusted you because you were useful at first, Caleb said. Then because you were reliable. Then somewhere along the way it stopped being about the job. Nora's throat tightened. Stop! Caleb ignored her. I knew one thing Sloane never understood. He looked toward her with cold certainty. Vincent Moretti could survive losing money, property, men, contracts. His eyes sharpened. But if he believed you betrayed him, he would stop thinking. Nora felt the truth of it before he finished. Caleb had not selected her credentials simply because they were convenient. He had selected her because of what she meant. The betrayal had to hurt. Enough to make Vincent angry. Enough to make him reckless. Enough to make him ignore the contradictions. Nora's voice came quietly. You chose me because he trusted me. Caleb nodded. Exactly. And you knew he'd fire me. I knew he would punish you before he asked himself why it hurt. On the phone, nothing. No breath, no movement. Nora could imagine Vincent standing somewhere in his office hearing another man explain him like a weakness in a security system. Caleb looked at her. That's the irony. What? You were never the weak point. His gaze shifted to the phone. He was. The words sat between them. Nora looked down at the marble floor for 1 second, then back at Caleb. You built everything around that. I built enough. You forged my access. Copied it. Created the external transfer. Yes. Prepared the report. Yes. Made sure Vincent saw it before I could speak to him alone. Caleb smiled faintly. Timing matters. Nora felt something settle inside her. Not relief. Certainty. Vincent had heard it. Grant was coming. The evidence could now be connected to a confession. She needed Caleb to keep talking a little longer. You made one mistake. Caleb's expression sharpened. Which one? Nora looked at his phone. You came here yourself. I needed the drive. No, she shook her head. If this were only about the drive, you would have sent someone. Caleb studied her. Nora continued. You came because you needed to know whether I understood you. His face became unreadable. You needed to see whether I knew why. Caleb said nothing. Nora felt almost sorry for how predictable pride made people. You wanted me to know you beat me. A flicker. Tiny. Enough. Caleb's voice cooled. Give me the drive. Nora held his gaze. No. His jaw tightened. Put your bag on the bench and walk away. No. Nora. There was no pretense of friendliness now. Vincent already has enough to know you were framed. Then you don't need the drive. Don't be clever. I thought you respected that. Caleb stepped around the end of the bench. Nora moved the opposite direction. People passed between them. He could not reach for her without drawing attention. That was the only advantage she needed. Do you really think Vincent is going to let you disappear after this? Caleb asked. Nora's face hardened. That's between me and Vincent. You still believe you have a choice? Yes. Men like him don't understand choice. Vincent heard that. Nora wondered if Caleb knew exactly how cruel the sentence was. Probably. Caleb continued. They understand possession, territory, loyalty. And you, I understand reality? No. Nora's voice became quiet. You understand resentment. His expression changed. Then Nora saw movement near the main entrance. 2 men in dark coats, another behind them. Grant Holloway. Nora knew his walk before she saw his face. Relief moved through her so quickly her knees almost weakened. She did not show it. Caleb saw it anyway. His eyes moved toward the doors. For the first time, fear entered his expression. It lasted less than a second. Calculation replaced it. Caleb stepped backward. Nora spoke before he could disappear. Caleb. He looked at her. You really did make one mistake. His eyes narrowed. Nora lifted the phone. You thought he'd stop listening after he fired me. Caleb's gaze fixed on the device. Then he looked across the station. Grant was moving quickly now, not running, moving directly toward Nora. 2 security men spread wider through the crowd. Caleb took another step backward. Grant did not chase him. That surprised Caleb. It surprised Nora, too. For half a second, Caleb had a clear path toward an exit. He took it. He disappeared behind a group of travelers moving toward the platforms. One of Grant's men looked at him. Grant shook his head once. No pursuit. He came directly to Nora. Protect Nora first, everything else second. The realization landed harder than she expected. Grant stopped several feet away. Are you hurt? No. Did he touch you? No. Grant looked toward the crowd where Caleb had disappeared, then back to her. Good. Nora let out a breath she had been holding for several minutes. Grant glanced at the phone in her hand. Mr. Moretti is still there. Vincent answered through the speaker. Yes? Grant almost smiled. Of course. Nora looked at him. You let Caleb go. For the moment. Why? Grant's expression made the answer obvious. Vincent gave one instruction. Nora waited. Get to you first. Her throat tightened. She hated that the words mattered. She hated that after everything that morning, some part of her still knew exactly how unusual that order was. Grant extended his hand. "The drive." Nora looked at him, then at her bag. For the first time since leaving the building, she hesitated. Grant noticed. "You don't have to trust me." That surprised her. His voice remained steady. "But Caleb knows you have it. That makes the drive dangerous as long as it stays with you." Nora glanced around the station. Caleb was gone. For now. She unzipped the inner pocket, removed the small black drive. Grant did not reach for it immediately. He waited until she held it out. Then he took it and slipped it into a secure case inside his coat. Vincent spoke through the phone. "Nora." She raised it to her ear. The station noise seemed to move farther away. "I'm here." His voice was lower now. "Come back to the office." Nora closed her eyes. There it was. The sentence the woman who had walked out in the rain might have wanted. Come back. The invitation should have repaired something. Instead, she saw the conference room, the black folder, her badge on the table, Vincent refusing 5 minutes. "No." Silence. Grant looked away. Vincent spoke again. "Nora, Caleb is still in the city." "Then find Caleb. You need protection. Grant can arrange it. I want you somewhere I can secure." Her eyes opened. "Somewhere you can control." Vincent went quiet. Nora felt exhaustion settle through her body. She had been afraid for hours. She had discovered betrayal, been accused of it, fired for it, followed through the city because of it. And Vincent was still speaking in the language he understood best. "Control. Come back," he said again, softer this time. Nora looked at the crowds moving around her. "No, Vincent." "Nora, you have the evidence." "I don't care about the evidence right now." She almost laughed. "That is an interesting change." He absorbed the blow without answering. Nora continued. "You wanted proof before you trusted me." His voice came quietly. "I was wrong." "Yes. I know that now." "Yes. Nora." There was something in the way he said her name. No authority, almost a plea. That hurt more. Vincent Moretti did not plead. Not in boardrooms, not in negotiations, not with rivals, perhaps not with anyone. She tightened her grip around the phone. 4 hours ago, I asked you for 5 minutes. Silence. You wouldn't give them to me. I know. Now you're asking me to walk back into the same building because you finally believe what I was trying to tell you. His breathing changed. Nora looked toward Grant. He had moved several steps away to give her privacy. You don't get to decide how quickly I recover because you finally caught up to the truth. Vincent did not defend himself. That almost made it harder. She continued. Grant can take me somewhere safe. I can send a car. No. I can send security. Grant decides what is necessary. A pause. Vincent was not accustomed to hearing his name removed from decisions involving his own people. Nora knew that. He knew she knew. Come back to the office, he said one final time. Nora closed her eyes. That morning she would have followed that voice without hesitation. She had reorganized days because of it, canceled plans because of it, stayed late because it asked, walked into rooms she hated because Vincent needed someone he trusted beside him. Now all she could hear beneath those 4 words was the moment that trust had failed. No, Vincent's voice dropped to almost nothing. Please. Nora opened her eyes. Grant looked back at her. He had heard it. His expression changed. So had Nora's. In 3 years, she could not remember Vincent Moretti using that word with her. Not sincerely. Not because he needed something he could not command. For one dangerous second, she nearly said yes. Then she remembered why saying no mattered. Marcus is not here to take me back to you. She stopped and corrected herself, exhaustion making the wrong name slip from memory. Grant is here to make sure I'm safe. Vincent said nothing. Nora continued. Let him do that. Another long silence. Then Vincent answered. All right. She almost did not recognize him. No argument, no order, no demand for her location after Grant moved her. Only 2 words. All right. Nora's throat tightened. She ended the call before he could hear it in her voice. For a few seconds, she stood beneath the high ceiling of Union Station with the phone still against her ear. The line was dead. Grant approached carefully. "I have a vehicle outside." Nora lowered the phone. "Not his." Grant understood immediately. No. Not one of his hotels. No. Somewhere Caleb would not expect. Grant nodded. "I have a place." Nora picked up her bag. It felt lighter without the drive inside. Strangely, she did not. They began moving toward a side exit. Halfway there, Nora stopped. Grant turned. "What is it?" She looked toward the entrance Caleb had used. People continued moving through it. No sign of him. Caleb knew Vincent would fire me. Grant's expression tightened. Nora stared through the glass doors at the rain outside. He knew before Vincent did. Grant said nothing. He built the entire accusation around something he was certain Vincent would do. Vincent hurt him. That doesn't change the fact that Caleb was right. Grant watched her. Nora shook her head. "I'm not saying Caleb was right about me. I know. I'm saying he understood Vincent's weakness well enough to weaponize it." Grant's gaze moved toward the floor. Nora looked at him. "You run his security." "Yes. How do you protect a man from that?" Grant took a moment before answering. "You don't." Nora frowned. Grant continued. "Not with cameras, not with men, not with locks." Rain streaked the station doors. Nora looked out at Chicago. Grant's voice was quiet. "Some things he has to decide to stop doing to himself." Nora absorbed the words. Then she walked outside. The rain had softened. A dark sedan waited at the curb. Grant opened the rear door. Nora looked at the car, then back at the city behind her. Somewhere across downtown, Vincent Moretti now had proof that she had never betrayed him. For 3 years, Nora would have believed that truth was enough. She got into the car. The door closed. Grant took the front passenger seat. As the vehicle pulled away from Union Station, Nora turned her phone face down in her lap. Across Chicago, Vincent stood alone beside her empty desk. The call had ended, but he had not moved. On the screen of his phone were the last 2 words he had spoken to the woman he had fired that morning. All right. For the first time in years, Vincent Moretti had given an order to no one, and for the first time he had accepted that Nora Whitaker did not have to come when he called. Vincent remained beside Nora's empty desk long after the call ended. The city moved beyond the windows as if nothing had happened. Cars crawled along Wacker Drive. Rainwater gathered in silver lines against the glass. Phones rang in distant offices. Somewhere down the hall, 2 men were arguing quietly over a contract that had seemed important that morning. Vincent heard none of it. His attention stayed on the dark screen of his phone. All right, 2 words. He had spent most of his adult life teaching people that when Vincent Moretti spoke, the conversation ended. This time Nora had ended it. And he had let her. He placed the phone on her desk. Her coffee mug was still beside the keyboard. A paper calendar lay open beneath it, crowded with her handwriting. His handwriting existed mostly as signatures. Nora's existed everywhere. Notes beside names. Warnings beside meetings. Reminders he had never asked her to make. Call Lena. Review Rizzo revision. Mother's birthday. Eat before Milwaukee. He stared at that last one. For years he had treated Nora's attention like part of the building. Reliable. Quiet. Always there. You did not thank an elevator for arriving. You did not thank the lights for turning on. You noticed only when they stopped working. Grant entered without knocking. Vincent looked up. Where is she? On the way to a hotel near the Magnificent Mile. Which one? Grant hesitated. Vincent's eyes hardened automatically. Then he remembered. Nora had told Grant to decide what was necessary. She had not given Vincent permission to know where she was. His jaw tightened. Grant waited. Vincent looked away. Don't tell me. Grant seemed surprised. Vincent hated that too. Make sure she's protected. Already done. Caleb, we have people looking. Find him. We will. Vincent looked at the black security file still sitting on the conference table beyond the glass wall. No shortcuts. Grant followed his gaze. No assumptions. Vincent's voice lowered. Not again. Grant nodded. Then he removed a small, secure case from inside his coat. The drive. Vincent looked at it. For several seconds he did not move. Everything Nora had risked her career to find was inside that case. Everything he had refused to hear. "Open it." Grant connected the encrypted drive to an isolated computer in Vincent's office. The first folder appeared. Ashcroft. Inside were dozens of files, payment records, access histories, travel calendars, internal notes. Vincent sat down. Grant remained standing near the door. Vincent opened the first document. Nora had created a comparison table, date, location, authorization code, Vincent's actual location, associated leak, possible consequence. She had marked discrepancies in red: Detroit, St. Louis, New York, Las Vegas. Vincent moved to the next page, then another. The deeper he went, the quieter the room became. Nora had not stumbled into Ashcroft that morning. She had been tracking inconsistencies for days. A note from 2 nights earlier read, "Authorization pattern suggests deliberate use of travel windows. Need physical access review before approaching Vincent. If internal leak, normal reporting channel may be compromised." Vincent read the sentence twice. Before approaching Vincent. She had intended to tell him. Of course she had. Another note. Caleb Anthony Miles appear repeatedly. No conclusions yet. Do not accuse until verified. Vincent leaned back. She had shown more restraint while suspecting a traitor than he had shown while suspecting her. He opened the next file. A scanned copy of a confidential meeting schedule. Nora had circled a location. Beside it, she had written, "Only 6 people had this address." Another file. Derek Sloan Shell Company connection possible. Need attorney outside normal chain to verify registration. Another. If system logs are altered, preserve physical documents before alerting anyone. Vincent looked toward Grant. She removed originals because she thought someone might erase the digital record. Looks that way. Vincent looked back at the screen. That morning he had asked why she took the files. She had said she was protecting him. He had heard the sentence. He simply had not believed it. Grant's phone vibrated. He checked the message. "We located the account Caleb used for the external transfer." Vincent's expression sharpened. "And the activity was routed through Nora's credentials, but the encryption key originated from Caleb's administrative terminal." Vincent felt no satisfaction. He should have. Proof was what he had demanded. Now he had it. It tasted like ash. Grant continued. "Caleb also accessed a backup account about 20 minutes before we shut him out. Can he reach company systems? Not anymore." "What did he access?" "We're checking." Vincent looked at him. "Faster." Grant nodded. Vincent returned to Nora's files. Near the bottom of the folder was a document labeled "Personal Note." He stopped. Grant noticed. "I can step out." Vincent said nothing. Grant left anyway and closed the door. Vincent opened the file. There were only 4 lines. "If something happens before I can explain this, make sure Vincent knows I did not betray him. I removed the documents because someone inside the company is selling his private information. Do not let him confront anyone until the access pattern is verified. He gets reckless when betrayal becomes personal." Vincent stared at the final sentence. For a long time he could not look away. Even while preparing for the possibility that she might disappear, Nora had worried about how he would react. Not about her reputation, not her job. Him. And she had been right. He had become reckless. Caleb had known it. Nora had known it. The only person who had not understood Vincent Moretti that morning was Vincent Moretti. He closed the file. The office seemed larger without Nora outside it. Too quiet. He stood and walked to the window. Memory came without permission. A winter night 18 months earlier. 2:30 in the morning. Vincent waking at his desk with his cheek against a contract. His office lights dimmed, his jacket folded over him. Nora asleep in the chair outside with her shoes off and a blanket pulled over her knees. She had canceled his 7 o'clock meeting without asking. When he demanded an explanation, she had said, "Because you are useless when you pretend you don't need sleep." He had almost fired someone else for less. He had brought her breakfast. Another memory. Lena calling after an argument. Vincent had ignored the first call, then the second. Nora had stood in his doorway with the phone in her hand. "Your sister." "I'm busy." "No." He had looked up. Nora had placed the phone on his desk. "Family does not become less complicated because you refuse to answer." Vincent had stared at her, then picked it up. Another memory. 6 months ago, a partnership failing. Vincent furious enough to end it permanently. Nora standing between him and the door. You are allowed to be angry. He had looked at her with enough force to make almost anyone leave. She had not moved. You are not allowed to make permanent decisions just because you are angry. He had listened then. Somehow, when the permanent decision involved Nora, he had forgotten every word. The office door opened. Lena entered. She took one look at his face and stopped. What happened? Vincent did not answer. Her eyes moved toward Nora's empty desk, then toward the black file. You fired her. It was not a question. Vincent looked at his sister. Lena's face changed. You actually fired her. I thought she had compromised company information. And did she? No. The answer came too quickly, too flat. Lena stared at him. Where is she? Safe. That is not what I asked. Grant has her protected. Lena stepped closer. Did you apologize? Vincent looked away. Yes. And she doesn't want to come back. Lena gave a short breath that sounded almost like disbelief. You sound surprised. Vincent's eyes returned to hers. Be careful. No, she crossed her arms. You do not get to scare everyone out of telling you the truth today. Vincent's expression hardened. Lena did not move. You thought she betrayed you? Yes. And instead of asking why you fired her. There was evidence. There was paper. Evidence is paper. No, Vincent. Evidence is something you examine before destroying a person over it. His jaw tightened. Lena softened only slightly. What did Nora ask you for? He said nothing. Lena already knew. Trust. Vincent looked toward the windows. 5 minutes. Lena's face fell. She asked for 5 minutes alone. Vincent nodded. And you wouldn't give them to her? No. Lena looked at him for several seconds. Then she said quietly, You should leave her alone. Vincent looked at her sharply. Lena continued, If she wants distance, give it to her. Caleb is still out there. Protecting her and owning her are not the same thing. I know that. Do you? The question stayed in the room. Vincent did not answer. Lena picked up Nora's coffee mug. She stared at the pale stain inside. She spent 3 years making your life easier. She put it down again. Maybe the least you can do now is make hers harder to reach. Vincent looked at his sister. I don't know how to fix this. Lena's expression softened. For the first time that day, someone looked at him without fear or disappointment. Only sadness. That might be the first useful thing you've said. She left. Vincent stood alone again. Across the city, Nora sat beside a hotel window with a fresh cup of coffee cooling between her hands. She had not taken a sip. The room was quiet. Neutral. Nothing in it belonged to Vincent. That was why she had agreed to stay there. Grant had chosen a boutique hotel with no connection to Moretti Holdings. No familiar employees. No private entrance Vincent controlled. No floor reserved under one of his companies. Nora had checked. Twice. The city blurred beneath the rain outside. Her phone lay face down on the table. Vincent had called once after she arrived. She had not answered. He had not called again. That surprised her. The Vincent she knew solved resistance by increasing pressure. Another call. Another car. Another person appearing at a door with instructions. This time, nothing. Nora wished that made her feel better. Instead, the silence gave her room to think. That was worse. She thought about the conference room, the exact sound of her badge touching the table, Vincent's face when he told her she was done, the second before he refused to clear the room. 3 years. She had told herself that mattered. 3 years of late nights. 3 years of choosing his emergencies before her own plans. 3 years of remembering which foods his mother hated, which shoulder bothered him during cold weather, which contracts made him suspicious, which anniversaries he pretended not to care about. She had never thought of those things as sacrifices. Not then. That realization hurt differently. Nora stood and crossed to the mirror above the desk. She looked tired. Not frightened anymore, just emptied out. Her phone vibrated. She stared at it. A message. Vincent, I owe you an apology that cannot fit inside a message. Nora read it once. Then again, another appeared. "I will not ask you to come back tonight. I only need to know you are safe." Her throat tightened. The wording mattered. Tonight. A part of her noticed the limitation immediately. He was trying. He still did not fully know how. Nora typed, "I am safe." She pressed send. His reply came almost immediately. "Thank you. Nothing else. No demand, no location request. No explanation." Nora placed the phone down. A memory surfaced. Months earlier, Vincent had dismissed a warehouse manager after an argument. Nora had convinced him to reverse the decision the next morning. She remembered standing in his office and saying, "One day you're going to push away the wrong person." Vincent had looked amused. "You—" Nora had laughed. "God, no. I'm too stubborn." She closed her eyes. At the time, it had been a joke. At 5:12, her phone rang. "Grant," Nora answered. "What happened?" No greeting. Grant's tone told her one was unnecessary. "We found the backup account Caleb accessed." Nora stood. "What did he pull?" "Hotel security records." Her eyes moved toward the door. "What records?" "Vendor reservation data from a company that services several downtown hotels." Nora's grip tightened. "Does he know where I am?" "We don't know." A sound came from the hallway. The soft bell of the elevator. Nora stopped breathing. Grant continued speaking. "I have 2 people on your floor. I haven't seen them. They're near the stairwell." Footsteps sounded beyond the door, slow, measured. Nora moved away from it. "Grant, I'm here." The footsteps came closer, then stopped. 3 knocks, quiet, controlled. Nora's pulse slammed against her throat. A familiar voice came through the wood. "Nora." "Caleb." Her skin went cold. "We need to finish our conversation." Grant's voice sharpened through the phone. "Do not open that door." "I wasn't planning to." "Move away from the entrance." Nora stepped toward the far side of the room. Caleb knocked again. "I know you're in there." Nora stared at the door. "There is nothing left to discuss." Caleb gave a soft laugh from the hallway. "Vincent has the drive." "Yes." "Then you understand what happens now." Nora looked toward the window. 17 floors below, traffic moved along Michigan Avenue. Yellow taxis, red brake lights, people under umbrellas. The city looked impossibly normal. "What happens now is not my problem anymore." Silence. Then Caleb said, "You really believe Vincent is going to let you walk away?" The question reached deeper than she wanted. Nora forced herself to answer. "He already did." Caleb laughed. "No, he fired you. That is not the same thing." Grant spoke into her ear. "Hotel security is coming up." Nora kept her eyes on the door. Caleb continued. "Vincent doesn't know how to lose things. He replaces them, buys them back, threatens whoever took them. He doesn't own me. You think he knows that?" Nora's jaw tightened. "He'll learn." Footsteps sounded near the far end of the hallway. More than one person. Caleb heard them too. His voice changed. "Nora, I never wanted you involved. You used my name. I needed someone he would believe." Nora stared at the door. "No." She understood more clearly now. "You needed someone whose betrayal would hurt him." Silence. Caleb did not answer. He did not need to. Nora continued. "You could have framed anyone with access." Still nothing. "But you chose me because you knew he would react before he thought." Caleb's voice became quiet. "And I was right." The sentence cut. Nora let it. Then she answered. "Yes." A pause. "You were." Grant said, "Nora." She ignored him for 1 second. "You were right about Vincent that morning." Her voice stayed steady. "But that doesn't mean you won." Voices sounded outside, firm, professional. Caleb moved. Nora heard his footsteps retreat. Grant's voice came through the phone. "Stay where you are." There was movement in the hallway. No shouting, no crash, only muffled commands. A door opening somewhere. Then silence. A minute later, 3 knocks sounded. Different this time. "Miss Whitaker, Grant Holloway." Nora did not move immediately. "Show me." Grant stepped in front of the peephole. Nora checked, then opened the door. Grant stood outside with 2 hotel security officers. Caleb was gone. "Where is he?" "Being escorted downstairs." Arrested, not by us. Grant's expression remained controlled. Council has already contacted investigators. They can handle what happens from here. Nora nodded. The adrenaline that had been holding her upright suddenly disappeared. Her knees weakened. She reached for the door frame. Grant moved forward, then stopped himself before touching her. You all right? Nora took one breath, then another. I think I forgot to be scared. You can do that now. A strange laugh escaped her. It sounded almost broken. Grant looked toward the room. Do you want a doctor? No. Another hotel? No. Anything. Nora shook her head. Then the elevator bell sounded again. Grant's face changed. Nora saw it. No. He looked toward the elevator. Grant. The doors opened. Vincent stepped out. Alone, no coat, no security. The charcoal suit he had worn that morning was creased at the elbows. His tie was gone. His hair was damp from the rain. Nora had seen Vincent injured before. She had seen him furious. She had seen him after 40 hours without sleep. She had never seen him uncertain. He stopped 15 feet away. Grant looked at Nora. He heard Caleb found you. Nora's eyes stayed on Vincent. You promised. Vincent did not move. I know. Grant said you wouldn't come unless I asked. I know. I didn't ask. His jaw tightened. No. The old Vincent would have explained immediately. Security risk, Caleb, responsibility, necessary precautions. Instead, he said, I'm sorry. Nora stared at him. Vincent continued. I heard he found you and I stopped thinking. Nora felt anger flare before she could stop it. That seems to be a pattern today. Grant lowered his eyes. Vincent absorbed the words without defense. Yes. One word. Nora had prepared herself for arguments, for authority, for explanations polished until his mistake looked unavoidable. That simple yes unsettled her more. Vincent looked toward Grant. Give us a minute. Nora immediately said no. Vincent stopped. Grant waited. Nora folded her arms. He stays. Vincent nodded. All right. Again, that phrase. He looked at her. The evidence clears you completely. Good. Caleb's access is terminated. Ashcroft is frozen. Every account he touched is being reviewed. Nora said nothing. Council has the records. Investigators will have copies tonight. Good. I am calling every person who sat in that room this morning. Nora's eyes narrowed. Why? To tell them you were innocent. You can have Miles do that. No. Vincent's voice hardened for the first time, then softened again. I accused you. I corrected. Nora looked away. That mattered too. She did not want it to. Vincent took one step toward her. Nora stepped back. Everything stopped. Vincent froze. Grant looked away. Nora's breath caught. She had not planned the movement. Her body had simply made the decision before her mind did. Vincent looked at the distance she had created between them. Something in his face broke quietly. 3 years ago, Nora had walked into his office without knocking. She had taken pens out of his hand when he was about to sign something stupid. She had stood close enough to fix his collar before meetings. Now he moved toward her and she moved away. I would never hurt you. His voice was low. Nora swallowed. I know. Vincent looked confused. Then what are you afraid of? Nora stared at him. For the first time all day, the answer felt simple. That next time someone puts a convincing enough folder on your desk, you'll believe them before you believe me. Vincent said nothing. There was no defense available. Nora stepped closer only enough to make sure he heard every word. You keep telling me the evidence clears me. Her voice trembled once. She hated that. She continued anyway. I knew I was innocent before the evidence cleared me. Vincent's face tightened. I needed you to know who I was. Nora. No, she shook her head. You don't get to fix this by telling me Caleb lied. I know. You believed him. Vincent lowered his eyes. Yes. After 3 years. Yes. After every time I stood beside you when everyone else was trying to tell you what you wanted to hear. I know. Stop saying that. His eyes lifted. Nora felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. You didn't lose my loyalty today, Vincent. The hallway went completely still. Nora looked into his eyes. "You lost my trust." Vincent did not move. The words seemed to take something physical from him. Nora had watched powerful men become nervous when he entered a room. She had watched negotiations change because Vincent leaned forward. She had watched people apologize to him before understanding what they had done. None of that power helped him now. He nodded once, slowly. "I understand." "No?" Nora's voice softened. "I don't think you do yet." She stepped back into the hotel room. Vincent did not follow. That mattered. Nora put her hand on the door. Vincent said her name. She stopped. He could have asked her to stay, could have promised anything, could have told her what she meant to him. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry." Nothing else. No explanation. Nora closed the door. She stood against it after the lock clicked into place. Outside, no footsteps approached. No knock came. Her phone did not ring 5 minutes later. No message appeared. Vincent Moretti, a man who had built his entire life around refusing to let other people decide when a conversation was finished, walked away because Nora had closed a door. That was the first apology she believed. The following morning, Grant delivered a sealed envelope to the hotel front desk. Nora opened it beside the window. Inside was her company badge, a formal letter stating that every accusation against her had been withdrawn. A second letter confirmed that her personnel record had been cleared. At the bottom of the envelope was a folded sheet of paper. Vincent's handwriting. 7 words. "I should have believed you when it mattered." Nora read them twice, then folded the page and put it back. At 11:40, her phone rang. Vincent. She considered ignoring it, then answered. "Your name is clear," he said. "I know. I spoke to everyone personally." Nora looked down at the city. "Thank you." There was a pause. "Everything Caleb touched is being audited." "Good." Another pause. Vincent inhaled. "There is something else." Nora already knew. Her stomach tightened. "Your position is available whenever you want it." She closed her eyes. Of course. This was the language Vincent understood. Something was taken. Restore it. Something was damaged. Replace it. Something was lost. Increase the offer. "I don't want my job back." Silence. Vincent had expected anger. He had not expected finality. "Nora." "No. I can increase your salary." She almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was so completely him. "You can choose your own staff." "Vincent." "You can oversee every administrative department. You would report only to me." "You're negotiating." "I'm trying to fix this." "That's the problem." He went silent. Nora looked at the people crossing the wet sidewalk below. "You think everything can be fixed by making the offer bigger. Tell me what you want." The words came quickly, almost desperate. Nora thought about 3 years. His meetings, his emergencies, his coffee, his family, his world. Somewhere along the way, she had started believing that being indispensable meant being seen. Now she was not sure those were the same thing. "I wanted you to believe me." Vincent said nothing. "Not because I was your secretary." Her voice stayed steady. "Because I had earned your trust." "You had." Nora's throat tightened. Then why did one folder erase 3 years? No answer came. Chicago moved beneath her. Vincent breathed quietly on the other end of the call. Finally, he said, "I was afraid." Nora frowned. It was not the answer she expected. Vincent continued, "I was afraid you had betrayed me." "That doesn't make it better." "I know." This time she let him say it. "I am sorry." Nora closed her eyes. "I know." "Is there anything I can do?" She thought about it. One answer came. Time. Vincent did not speak. And distance. That one hurt him. She heard it in the breath he released. Still, he did not argue. "All right." Nora looked out at the city. Before the call ended, Vincent spoke again. "Nora." "Yes. Thank you for protecting me when I didn't deserve it." Her throat tightened. She stared at the rain tracing the window. "Don't make me regret it." His answer came quietly. "I won't." Nora ended the call. For the first time in 3 years, she opened a blank calendar with no Vincent Moretti meetings inside it. She stared at the empty week. Then she picked up a pen. 3 weeks later, Nora Whitaker was still getting used to the sound of her own name on an office door. Nora Whitaker, Director of Operations. She stopped in front of it every morning for the first few days. Not because the title surprised her, because nobody else's name was attached to it. No Moretti Holdings, no executive floor, no Vincent. The firm occupied the 12th floor of a renovated brick building in the West Loop, far below the glass towers where she had spent the last 3 years. The offices were smaller, the hallways were louder, people ate lunch at their desks without someone from security checking who entered the floor. Nora liked it. She liked carrying her own coffee. She liked that her calendar contained meetings she had chosen. She liked leaving the building at 6:30 without wondering whether Vincent would suddenly decide he needed her at 9. The first week felt strange. The second felt quiet. By the third, quiet was beginning to feel like freedom. On Monday morning, Nora stepped out of the elevator, balancing a coffee and a folder of quarterly reports. She took 2 steps, then stopped. Vincent Moretti stood near the reception desk, alone. No Grant, no driver, no men pretending not to watch the hallway. He wore a dark suit and a black overcoat, damp at the shoulders from the cold Chicago morning. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The receptionist glanced between them. Nora looked at Vincent. "How did you know where I work?" His expression remained calm. "I asked Grant." Her eyes narrowed. "That is not comforting. He told me after I asked whether contacting you here would create a security problem." Nora studied him. "You asked?" "Yes." "You did not send someone?" "No." "You did not have someone follow me?" "No." She raised one eyebrow. "Should I call Grant and verify that—" Something almost warm moved across Vincent's face. "You probably should." Nora wanted to smile. She refused. "Why are you here?" Vincent looked toward the folder in her hand. "I wanted 5 minutes." "You came across Chicago for 5 minutes?" "Yes." "That sounds inefficient." "I have been told efficiency is not always the point." Nora stared at him. "Who told you that, Lena?" "Of course." Vincent glanced toward the office behind her. "I am not here to offer you your job." "Good. I am not here to discuss Moretti Holdings." "Better." "And I did not bring anything." Nora looked at his hands. Empty. No flowers, no contract, no absurdly expensive gift chosen by an assistant. That surprised her more than it should have. Vincent noticed. "I considered flowers." Nora almost laughed. That would have been a terrible idea. Grant agreed. "Grant is becoming very useful. He has been enjoying this more than necessary." A smile escaped her before she could stop it. Small, brief. Vincent saw it. Of course he did. But he did not treat it like victory. That mattered. Nora looked toward the conference room near reception. 5 minutes. Vincent nodded. 5. They sat across from each other at a round table. Morning sunlight came through the windows. No rain, no black walnut table, no 6 men watching, no folder with Nora's name printed across it. Vincent placed nothing between them. Nora set her coffee beside her hand. 4 minutes now. Vincent looked at the clock on the wall. "I spent 3 weeks trying to understand why I made that decision so quickly." Nora did not help him. He continued. "Caleb knew exactly where to push. He knew you were afraid." Vincent looked at her. "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. That was new. Nora folded her hands. "Afraid of losing control?" "No." Vincent paused. "Afraid you had betrayed me." The distinction settled between them. Nora said nothing. Vincent looked down at the table for a moment. "My father trusted a man named Patrick Bell for almost 20 years. Nora had heard the name once. Never the story. Vincent continued. "Bell knew where we lived, where my mother went to church, which route my father took home. He knew which businesses belonged to us and which did not." Vincent's voice remained steady, but Nora could hear something beneath it. Old anger, older fear. "He sold that information." Nora did not move. "How old were you?" 17. Vincent's eyes shifted toward the window. "We survived. Not everyone did." Nora waited. Vincent returned his gaze to her. "After that, I learned a very simple rule. Trust creates openings, Control closes them. Nora's voice was quiet. So you built your life around never leaving one? Yes. Then why did you trust me? Vincent's expression changed. It was almost imperceptible, but Nora saw it. At first because you were good at your job. Romantic. I am not finished. She leaned back. Vincent continued. Then because you noticed things before everyone else. Then because you told me when I was wrong even when it made your life harder. His eyes stayed on hers. Eventually I stopped checking you. Nora felt something tighten inside her. Vincent said, That should have frightened me. Did it? No. His answer was immediate. That is why Caleb's lie worked. Nora lowered her gaze. Vincent's voice became quieter. I did not react like a man protecting his company. She looked up. I reacted like a 17-year-old boy who thought the person he trusted most had opened the door for someone else. Nora held his gaze. Your past explains what you did. I know. It does not excuse it. I know. She watched him carefully. 3 weeks earlier, Vincent would have tried to make his reasons sound like justification. Now he let them remain reasons. Nothing more. He looked toward the clock. 1 minute. Nora said nothing. Vincent stood. I'm not asking you to come back. She looked up at him. I'm not asking you to forgive me. He paused. And I am not asking you to trust me because I apologized. Nora's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Vincent's voice lowered. I am asking whether you will let me earn whatever part of your trust you are willing to give back. Silence filled the small room. The receptionist laughed softly somewhere outside. A phone rang. Nora looked through the glass wall toward her office. Her name was visible beside the door. Director of Operations. She had earned that without Vincent. She needed him to understand what that meant. I'm not coming back. I know. I like this job. I know. You cannot send cars when I did not ask for one. Vincent nodded. No gifts I did not ask for. Understood. No calling someone because you think you can solve my problem faster. He almost smiled. That rule sounds specific. It is. Grant already explained something similar. Nora stared at him. Grant has been coaching you. He would deny that. He should. Vincent waited. Nora looked down at her coffee, then back at him. Coffee. His expression changed. What? Saturday morning. He did not speak. Public place. Vincent still looked as though he was making sure he had heard correctly. No business. Fine. No security sitting at the next table pretending to read newspapers. Vincent frowned. That is not reasonable. Then no coffee. Across the street. 3 blocks away. Nora. 4. His eyes narrowed. She held his gaze. 2 blocks. Nora considered it. Fine. Vincent nodded solemnly. 2 blocks. She held out her hand. Deal. He looked at it for a second before taking it. His grip was gentle. Nothing dramatic happened. No apology erased what had happened. No promise repaired everything. They shook hands across an inexpensive table in a small office where Vincent Moretti had no authority at all, and Nora liked that more than she expected. Saturday coffee became another Saturday. The second time, Vincent arrived 7 minutes early. Nora arrived exactly on time. You are late, he said. She looked at her watch. No. You used to be 12 minutes early. I used to work for you. Vincent took a drink of coffee. Fair. The third Saturday became breakfast. Then there were weeks when Nora did not see him at all. Vincent never complained. He sent no messages asking what had changed. He did not ask Grant to check. At least Grant swore he did not. One Thursday afternoon, Nora canceled dinner 20 minutes before they were supposed to meet. A vendor problem had exploded at work. Her old instinct made her brace for Vincent's response. Her phone buzzed. No problem. Another night. That was all. Nora stared at the message longer than necessary. She returned to work. An hour later, no car appeared downstairs. No Moretti employee arrived carrying food. No phone call went to her managing partner. Vincent had done nothing. For the first time, Nora understood that doing nothing could sometimes require more discipline from him than taking control. 2 months later, her firm entered negotiations over a warehouse property near the river. One of the owners had connections to a businessman Vincent knew well. Nora mentioned the problem during dinner without thinking. Vincent put down his fork. "I can make a call." She immediately shook her head. "No," the old Vincent would have argued. The new one asked, "Do you want advice?" Nora looked at him. "No." He picked up his fork again. "Then tell me how it goes." She stared at him. "What?" "Nothing. You are looking at me strangely." "I'm adjusting." "To what growth?" Vincent rolled his eyes. She smiled. The negotiation took 11 days. Nora solved it without him. When she told Vincent, he did not ask why she had chosen one strategy over another. He did not explain how he would have done it. He raised his glass. "Congratulations, Director Whitaker." For reasons Nora could not explain that mattered more than the offer he had once made her to run every administrative department in his company. Winter settled over Chicago. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became walks along the lake when the cold was not brutal enough to make Nora regret leaving indoors. Vincent discovered that walking beside someone was different from escorting them. He learned not to position himself between Nora and every stranger who passed too close. Mostly. He still did it when people looked suspicious. Nora stopped pointing it out every time. One evening in February, they sat in a quiet restaurant near River North. Vincent's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen. Something in his expression changed. Nora noticed instantly. "What?" "Nothing." "That is my line." Vincent placed the phone face down. "Nora." "What happened?" He looked at her for several seconds, then picked up the phone. "Something crossed my desk today." Her stomach tightened. "What?" "A photograph." Nora's fingers went still around her glass. "Of me?" "Yes." "With who?" "Eric Lawson." She knew immediately. Lawson had once worked for a company associated with Derek Sloan. Nora had met him that afternoon through her new firm's acquisition team. Completely legitimate. Still, she understood what the photograph looked like. Private table. Quiet conversation. A man connected to someone who had tried to dismantle Vincent's organization. For one terrible second, Nora was back in the conference room. Black folder. Cold windows. Vincent asking questions he had already decided the answers to. She looked at him. "What do you think?" Vincent did not reach for the photograph. He did not ask where she had been. He did not call Grant. He simply said, "I'm asking you before I believe it." Nora stopped breathing. The restaurant sounds faded around her. Vincent watched her carefully. Nora lowered her eyes. "Lawson's company owns part of a logistics property my firm is considering." He was explaining an easement problem. Vincent nodded. "All right. That's it?" "That's it. You don't want proof. I will verify the business connection because I verify everything." Nora felt her chest tighten. Vincent continued. "But I wanted your answer before I decided what the photograph meant." She looked at him. Months earlier, Nora had told him exactly what she feared. Another convincing lie landing on his desk, having to prove 3 years of loyalty all over again. Now the lie had arrived, and Vincent had called her first. Nora looked down because suddenly his face was difficult to look at. "Thank you." He said nothing. He did not ask what the moment meant. That mattered too. Spring came slowly. Snow disappeared from the sidewalks. Trees along the lake began to turn green. Nora trusted Vincent with small things first, then larger ones. A difficult day at work. A problem with her father she had never told him about. The fact that she sometimes still woke angry about the conference room. Vincent never told her she should be over it. He listened, sometimes badly, then better. One April evening he asked if she wanted to visit his office. Nora nearly said no. Then curiosity won. The elevator ride felt strange. 46 floors. The doors opened. The executive floor looked almost exactly the same. Almost. Nora stepped out. Her old desk was gone. She stopped. Vincent noticed. "I moved it." "I can see that." 2 chairs now stood near the windows outside his office. A small table sat between them. No desk, no computer, no assistant stationed like a gatekeeper between Vincent and the rest of the world. Nora looked at him. "Why?" Vincent entered his office. Because I hired 3 people to do the job you were doing alone. Nora blinked. 3. You were doing too much. I told you that. You told me many things, most of them correct. Unfortunately, Nora laughed. Vincent walked toward the coffee table. 2 cups waited. He handed one to her. Cream, no sugar. Nora took a sip. Perfect. You remembered. Vincent looked offended. Of course I remembered. She walked toward the windows. Chicago spread below them. The river, the bridges, the streets where she had once walked in the rain, believing everything she had built had disappeared in a single morning. Vincent stood beside her, not too close, never assuming. He looked toward the place where her desk had been. Do you miss it? Being your secretary. Being here. Nora considered the question. 3 years ago, this floor had felt like the center of the world. Every urgent phone call came here. Every crisis. Every decision. She had measured entire days by whether Vincent needed her. Now she had another office, another title, another life. She looked at him. No. Vincent nodded. Good. That answer surprised her. Good. Yes. You don't want me to miss it? No. Why? Vincent looked out at the city. Because you should not have to miss a smaller life. Nora stared at him. He said it as if it were obvious. Maybe now it was. She looked back through the glass. The old desk was gone. Nothing stood where she used to spend 12 hours a day making someone else's world move smoothly. Nora felt no sadness, only recognition. Vincent turned toward her. I should tell you something. That usually sounds dangerous. It probably is. She waited. He took a breath. The first time Lena told me I was in love with you, I told her she was insane. Nora slowly turned. When was that? About 2 years ago. Her eyes widened. 2 years. She was very annoying about it. Nora began laughing. Vincent watched her. You find this funny? You spent 2 years believing I ran your calendar. You did run my calendar. Vincent. And apparently several other parts of my life. She shook her head. He stepped closer, only 1 step, then stopped. The old instinct returned for a moment. Nora remembered the hotel hallway, his movement, her retreat. Vincent remembered too. She saw it in his face. He waited. Nora closed the remaining distance herself. Vincent's expression softened. His hand lifted slowly. He touched her cheek only after she leaned into it. No command, no assumption, no taking. Just a question asked without words. Nora answered by kissing him. It was not dramatic. No city lights suddenly changed. No world rearranged itself beneath them. His hand rested gently against her face. Her fingers curled into the front of his shirt. When they separated, Vincent looked at her as if he had forgotten how to speak. Nora smiled. That is new. What? Vincent Moretti without an answer. He looked down at her. Enjoy it. I intend to. They stood beside the windows for a while without saying anything. Months earlier, Vincent had believed power meant being the person nobody dared to leave. Nora had believed love meant becoming so necessary that someone could not imagine life without her. Neither belief had survived that rainy morning. Nora eventually picked up her coffee. I have dinner with my team at 7. Vincent checked the time. I can have a car take you. She looked at him. He stopped, then corrected himself. Would you like a car? Nora smiled. No. Vincent nodded. All right. She headed toward the elevator. He did not follow. At the doors, Nora turned. Saturday? Vincent's face softened. Coffee? 2 blocks. 1. 3. He sighed. 2. The elevator doors opened. Nora stepped inside. Just before they closed, she looked at the man standing beside the office where she had once believed her entire life belonged. He no longer needed her behind his desk. She no longer needed him to need her. That was why she could choose him. The doors began to close. Vincent called her name. Nora. She looked up. He smiled. See you Saturday. Nora smiled back. Don't be late. The doors closed between them. And this time neither of them was afraid of what it meant to let the other walk away.